Welcome, data enthusiasts. My name is Joseph. I'm co-founder of Zuma Recruitment. We are the consultancy focused 100% on data professionals in and around the Berlin region. And this is our podcast, Data for Good, connecting you with all things data. And today we're joined by Tomas Peluritis, head of data at Kevin. Kevin is a rapidly expanding Lithuanian payments fintech. Kevin serves B2B customers in the European market. Thomas, how are you today?
Very good, like sun is shining, it's like spring all over the place, so what can go wrong?
Well, you're in Lithuania, aren't you?
Yeah, but the weather can change on like raining, like in the middle of nowhere. So already cloudy, but it's fine.
Yeah. Well, you are potentially speaking to people across Europe right now.
Hope other people have a better weather than we have.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, so let's get into today's topic. I understand we are to talk about how the value of data has increased over the last 5 years.
Yes.
Well, perhaps the title will change, but this is the theme for today's content. So introduce the topic. What will be your focus areas, whether it be tooling, process, tech, or even roles?
Okay, so in general, I think it's good to cover, the evolution of how people see, data, how it changed across the whole time, right? And what those change, brought to the whole, data ecosystem, right? Because it will involve, new people, right? New titles, right? It will involve new processes, evolution of the whole process. So let's see, how deeply, we're gonna cover, these different topics.
Yeah. There's a lot to cover, isn't there, potentially, because it seems that everything has changed. So a topic that comes up or threads through a lot of our podcasts that you might touch upon is businesses being data-driven. Businesses, the face of businesses and the operations of businesses have changed dramatically to become more data-driven. How do you believe businesses are more data-driven now than they were in 2017, 2018, 5 years ago?
That's very interesting, in general to talk about it. Just because, as far as I know, data maturity levels were like spread out, or like the idea about what they mean, were this like represented not that long ago, I guess, 2-3 years ago, and what I see, that actually those 5 years ago, like majority of the companies, if they weren't, creating some data products, or like something actually serving, machine learning, based suggestions and whatnot, they were just data aware, right? Data exists, we have some report here and there, right? Majority of the things, were sitting on-prem because, we didn't have, the let's all go to cloud, madness, right? So now, just basically compared to what we have, companies are moving, through those different data maturity levels. So some of them, are reactive, addressing, the issues, what they see, like based on the history, right? Some of them, are checking for upcoming issues, trying to forecast, like jump over, all the hurdles which are going to be thrown at them, then they're going to add more standards, more processes, and then at the end, they're going to be super effective, like all of the things, they have achieved. Though I have a doubt, that no one will be, in the last state, just because everything in data world like keeps evolving and changing rapidly fast, right? So I guess the main difference, is that evolution, in general is a natural cause. Tooling evolution, I guess, is what made it all happen.
Tooling has driven the evolution. Okay, Thomas, how long have you been with Kevin?
Year and a month.
A year and a month. Okay. Have you seen much change in the tooling in the year and a month that you've been there?
A lot of new tools were released, during that year, but we didn't, jump on the hype train yet, right? Because we see, already, the DuckDB hype, right? Everyone, oh, DuckDB, is super fun, we need to use it and whatnot. Then we have the polars. So we're trying them out, seeing potentially use cases, right? But for all of the businesses, I guess, it doesn't make sense to jump on the fresh, new, shiny thing just because it might break suddenly, right? Because under active development, they're testing out features. So already these two tools, came out or like became a hot topic like 3 months ago, right? That's one thing, right? Rust, programming language in general, data engineering is the new big thing, right? Everyone, oh, let's write, data pipelines in Rust. Rust is gonna be, the replacement of Python, maybe even in some cases, right? So like, and that happened, like somewhere, like 6 months period, So evolution is, and the new tooling, is like already very evident.
It's funny how the evolution has sped up as well. The fact that we used to see the rate of change in tech at 3 years, then 18 months, then 6 months, then 3 months. Now it seems every week we see some change. It's a lot for businesses to keep up with, to be effective in their daily business operations, as well as to utilize and harness the power of data. Rust, Python, yes, we're hearing a lot of talk of Rust overtaking Python, but I think it's still the kind of company is researching and testing, but for the most part staying with Python. Being an experienced data leader that you are, tell me how frameworks have evolved in your time.
So with frameworks, right? So I guess like we can start, with like the whole Hadoop ecosystem, right? It's a whole like big monstrosity in general, right? And it was considered, to be, the next big thing, right? Somewhere to 2014, right? Then it kind of evolved, we had Spark running things, right? Then, people started to create their own frameworks, all the libraries going here and there. So I guess, all of the frameworks are now, trying to fine tune or like solve the problems that exist, like the existing or like, their ancestors, had. So actually they're trying to make people's life easier, right? But with making easier, they're addressing either two things: moving low code or no code, right, to involve more business users, or super, twist and turn every knob and lever, to squeeze as much performance, fine tuning you need, right? So I would say, depends on what's your target group for you as a framework provider, right? You can go different ways and address different situations. What I also saw, that like, let's say there are some frameworks which are specifically aimed, for FinOps, right? So basically how to minimize your and be more cost effective, right? Because everyone went to cloud, everyone running, banana crazy, SQL queries, right? And then, when they see, the bill, like, what happens, like, so they're trying to optimize, right? With the uncertainty, in the economy and with everything what's happening, right? It's like they're trying to be cost effective now, right? So another, area, instead of, tooling, right? Some operational things are kicking in. So that's going to be an interesting, like, area, I guess, to watch.
Yeah, I want to go into no code and low code as well, because that talks about how data is being used by different departments within a business now, and not just data teams. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the introduction of low code or no code, given that stakeholders like myself, who are not technical experts of data, could essentially build our own code and make positions like your team's redundant?
About redundancy. But the thing is, that it's good to have those things when you're starting out, right? For even startups, right? You can easily plug and play a lot of things. You can already see, if they're bringing value, if your, hypothesis is, is is actually okay, right? If you're aiming to the right area. And then, actually when you later on, want to fine tune it, like what happens, right? Those platforms are like, quite not like quite restrictive, right? They won't allow you, to actually twist and, turn levers like I mentioned before, right? Then when you think, okay, we need to optimize it, right? Okay, we need, someone, like we need to start building data team, right? From the scratch, right? Then you bring in your first data person, right? And then he sees like, what can I do? I can't do nothing, right? Then you think, okay, we need this tooling, another tooling, you're thinking how all the tooling interconnect. So I would say low code and no code is good for POCs, trying out things. And if you're actually, not looking, results are good for you. Like, why do you even need, right? If you're data savvy, you know how to collect and, create some reports, which will bring you value. Yeah, then the data positions will be redundant. But most likely this is not the case, right? Because the more you go further, the more you evolve, the more actually accurate data and accurate, predictions, or like, like in general, accuracy will become, a key. Then you'll see, that maybe, it's not that cost effective as well if you reach the particular scale. And then you might need, to switch it, like, new team and whatnot.
Do you think everything is evolving and we're all about innovation? Would it not be that low code and even no code platforms evolve to the point where they are highly accurate? I mean, I'm not trying to conspiracy theorize that data professionals would be made redundant. I'm just, we're all about innovation. Why would they not advance to the point where we can get large data sets in high accuracy?
Let's go into ChatGPT maybe topic, right? Which is also the all the buzz, recently.
Yeah.
But that's the issue, like it can do things, with already preset data, right? We didn't, we can have, some good suggestions, some like basic, juniorish roles replaced there. Yes, makes sense, right? Can do that part accurately. But the thing is that businesses actually, like different areas or different products are quite complex, right? Then you have to feed a lot of data, to train that particular, like AI, or like ML model, whatever, right? So it could fit your needs, right? But in order to do that, you'd have to feed it a lot of context, a lot of data, and sometimes it's super expensive, I guess, because gathering the data and actually, feeding properly and then training as well, right? Not every time it's going to be efficient, right? If you're like, let's say, very straightforward, I don't know, nothing in business, I guess, is straightforward. Everywhere is a lot of edge cases, different situations, new market, and then there's, a whole bunch, bazillion parameters, you need to fine tune and check. So I would say replacement juniorish maybe level, right? But later, you need people, stitching those things up.
I see. So yeah, the more sophisticated, the more senior professionals will stay in, and less demand for juniors. But I think always is the case with juniors, we adopt juniors or we develop juniors with the intention of turning them into seniors. So yeah, jobs won't go in that regard. How about then the evolution of data positions? So the last 5 years, we've seen the analytics engineer, data ops, ML ops, machine learning scientists. What changes have you seen in reality the last 5 years?
Oh, the ML scientist, like that's a new to me, but I guess that's a hybrid, right? Coming from different areas. So, like what I see, that depending on the market or like, on the situation or like, the like product, right, you're in, it might end up, that we're gonna have more dedicated people, for specific area, right? So we're gonna see, most likely, some data brokers, or like, more dedicated, data quality specialists, right? So they would have, their own niche, but it's gonna happen, mostly in the big corporations, right? Where they're gonna, like dedicated role, it's good for us, right? But other than that, in smaller companies, this won't change much, right? Because what I tend to see, that in the ads and in the companies, that still people, like, okay, we need a data engineer, right? Yeah, they can reinvent, fine tune, the name, to be more marketing, suitable for based on, what's out there, right? But in the end, it's gonna be the same person who's gonna be like doing ETLs, ELTs, pushing data and pulling, from different places, right? You need an analyst, right, to analyze, actually make sense of that data, put a dashboard or like create insights. Still gonna be, the data analyst, business analyst, whatever you call it, right? So I guess fundamentally, the roles will stay defined, as they are, but we're gonna see more specific ones, in the more corporate companies, the bigger ones would actually need it.
Large companies become more specific. Smaller companies still somewhat general, because data professionals will have to cover more areas. What positions do you think will be the focus, or will emerge in the next 5 years? I'm conscious the conversation is changing from the last 5 years now to the future 5 years, but yeah.
Yeah, but that makes sense, right? You can look and learn a lot from the past, and see how it went, right? So in my eyes, those fundamental ones, data scientist, data analyst, like data engineer, are gonna stay as is, and their like demand for them is gonna, most likely rise, very fast. But ML ops and data ops are already, seeing, like we need this, we see a lot of people posting content about it, people, moving to those positions, sharing their knowledge about it. So actually those will be the key, let's say, for me, growth roles, right? What they're gonna aim. I might thinking of some, let's say usages of low code, no code, and so-called business scientists, right? We're going to be, less technical user, who's going to be, plugging and playing, those actually what we talk low code, no code solutions, right? Actually trying, to cover, those needs, because he's going to, know the business, right? And, if with super limited knowledge, even you can easily do that, right? So I would say that might be, a way where it turns, business scientist. I saw somewhere even this definition, that, yeah, we're going to need a business scientist. So if it's already in the talks, most likely it will happen, I guess. Even the newer ones. Let's see how it goes. It's going to be super, super fun 5 years. My guess,
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, continue.
No, exactly. Super fun 5 years. Lot of new roles, a lot of new tooling, right? You mentioned 3 months, now we've seen a lot of tooling. I guess either it's all going to consolidate, or, there's going to be new library, new thing, every week or like every month, right? Just because of the needs that evolve.
It's an interesting observation about ML ops and data ops and the business scientist. So I will look out for those. And I would have to say that although the next 5 years is going to be super interesting, the last 5 years have gone so quickly. The evolution of whole data environments is incredible. Let's look at processes within businesses then. So data teams have been built, and they have sought to better serve business needs. How have they interacted more differently with businesses? How have the processes changed?
So about the processes, like I guess the biggest thing, what happened basically, on the process side was the GDPR thing, which made all the data people, go crazy. We mask this, delete that, like everyone, like no one was thinking that we're gonna have to do that, right? So that kind of changed, right? Other parts, what I see, that exactly because companies were only data aware, right? They didn't saw, much value, how to engage or like involve your data team, right, into different areas, and where they're like, technical or like even in some cases, domain expertise on that, small subject will help them optimize, their flows, right? Like what I tend to see, that there are some, departments or like teams, who like actually, they have a lot of manual processes, right? We have to go into the system, extract some data to some Excel, right? Then we need to copy paste, to some different, sheet or a file, or like move it to a different system. And they're okay because it's, it's a casual thing for them, right? It's their day to day. But when you look, from a broader perspective, right, you can bring in, a data engineer or like, a RPA, developer, whatever you name it, and they can actually figure out where to take the data from, how to transform it, how to push it, right? With the tooling evolving every day, it becomes super easy. And then you can, allow those specific people, who are doing, a lot of manual work to actually look, into like bigger picture, what else they can, do and automate, right? So I think, that's the shift where people are moving, again, with my mention, data maturity levels, they're going more, now on the reactive, fixing the issues, right? What they see, where they can save time, and then they're gonna, move to the proactive, where they're gonna, okay, maybe you can see, you can help us, understand, what's the like the workload, we're gonna have, right? Maybe we need to like start looking for a new person, right, in our team or department, So I guess natural evolution and including of the data team in your day-to-day will help you, a long way.
With the emergence of data mesh, centralized and embedded data teams, do you think data professionals will need to interact with different people in the organization in the next 5 years? Is that pretty obvious with the idea of embedded data teams?
Oh, good topic on data mesh in general. So what I think, is that, data contracts, or like, having data mesh where specific domain team has all the knowledge. Yes, it makes sense in big organizations, right? Because you will not be able, to go and talk, with like, 10 different people who are responsible for 10 different, data sets, So then it doesn't make sense, right? It will minimize, to specific areas, or even in general, you won't have to talk with them, just gonna, fill a request, let's suggest this data contract between you and me, right? But in smaller companies, it doesn't matter, right? Because you have to know all the things, you're like sitting in same like area, you have same plannings or like even remotely, right? You're talking anyway. So maybe bigger companies, yes, you won't have to talk with other data people. But on the other side, knowledge sharing is key, right? We had this issue, we solved it very fastly with like, 2 lines of code, right? Other team is bashing their head, through the wall, like why it's not working, and they're sitting, I don't know, 2 meters away, right? But they're not talking, right? So that's going to be maybe, more knowledge sharing related, but not more on the, domain kind of areas, my guess.
That's that's a business issue as well, or a culture issue as well, isn't it? Keeping up communication lines. And the more businesses become data aware, hopefully, the more that's easier to facilitate. Okay, we've looked at processes a little bit. We've looked at the job changes a little bit. You've alluded to tooling. So we see, a whole load of ETL tools, streaming visualization tools on the market. Do you think the tooling landscape has become more complex to the point where it's really difficult and convoluted for data professionals these days?
Depends from which point you're looking, right? If you're, let's say, working in a big corporation, right? You have your dedicated area. So your kind of tooling options, are not that big, right? But if you look at MAD landscape, which was published, I guess, a couple months ago. So you can see like, I guess, a couple hundreds, of tools, out there for like, different areas here and there. So for the generalist, it's going to be a hard thing, to choose like what to use, right? Or do, because you won't be able, to do POC, right? On, I don't know, 10, 20 tools, right? You have to rely, on some like gut feeling, luck maybe, or some reviews online to actually figure this out. But
reviewing competition, similar industry players. Okay.
Meetups, I guess, because in-person meetups, are coming back, and it's becoming, like a thing again. So I don't know, talking with other experts, right? So again, knowledge sharing in a way, right? That helps.
What other areas should we cover when talking about the increasing of the value of data? Processes, tooling, roles.
We can do AI. We can do AI here, right? Because like that's the thing, right? LLMs, ChatGPT, GPT-4, DALL-E, and other things, right? That's how it helps in general, to do the mundane tasks, right? Because no one likes to do them, right? And like I see a lot of companies, right, jumping on that train, right? Either some people, actually developing tools, to solve specific, issues. So what I all actually liked, is that semantic layer was a huge thing, couple like people talked about it. Oh, we need semantic layer here and there, right? And then ChatGPT, came in, GPT-4 we have, and there's already a company, who's doing that, who's having a like basically a bot, you ask a question, you get an answer. So like I'm basing, that these kind of situations where you're combining, domain knowledge with actual the tooling, let's say open AIs, in this case Codex, right? It will allow you, to create more value here, right? So it's more like, not that like you asked before, right? AI will replace, some data people maybe, but actually no. If you're gonna use it right, it will increase your skills like insanely, right? Like for me, I used to, write a lot of like mundane code, right? I need to create a Airflow DAG. So I'm just writing, or like copy pasting from different place. If you're using, GitHub's Copilot, you just write the text, at the top, and then, autocomplete goes and creates, a lot of things. I just need to change a couple of parameters. It saved me like, already like 20 minutes, right? So AI will enhance our day-to-day, at least in this situation.
You mentioned GitHub's Copilot. Are there any other tools that you might recommend data professionals start using if they're not already?
Actually, like my day-to-day work is like a lot of Airflow and dbt. Everything is in VS Code, right? So for me, Copilot was a game changer. dbt Power User in general, like a very good VS Code extension, which actually makes it way easier for me to do things. Basically, I don't need to remember, a lot of dbt lines. I'm just gonna go right click, run this, go to or compile, go to the code. So that really helps. But those things are kind of, I guess, the most basic things, what data engineers now have. What I can also suggest, at least to try out, and I'm actually going to try more thoroughly. So it's going to be, the other orchestrators, which seems to be picking up speed, right? So I see two, Daxter, right? That picked up quite a lot of and created a lot of noise, in the market. We're going to replace Airflow. And then there is Mage AI, which is gonna be interesting. Quite a recent company, but they're making a lot of noise in the community. So gonna be interesting. So those tools I suggest to try out. But also, yeah.
Mage AI and
Daxter.
Yeah, that's also something for me to check out as well. What else?
I'm thinking, I guess, like my suggestion in general for anyone in the data, right, is have your specialty, right? Or like choose the tooling and be a good expert in it. In some cases, when you're a generalist, right, it helps, start things, you can build things. But it actually, when you know some tooling, in depth, it can like keep you miles away, from the others. Like you're gonna be way better just because you know how to fine tune, all the pros and cons, between different things. So I guess, choose what you like and try it.
Here's something then, keeping on topic with our whole 5-year evolution. What do you think data professionals should be studying, paying attention to, being mindful of to best? Okay.
So this is a book about trust. So I have it on my desk, So still feel that it's gonna happen. It's gonna be fun. So Rust.
Okay, so for anyone who's listening and not viewing, Thomas has just shown us a book. What's the name of the book?
The Rust programming language. It's authors Steve Klapnik and Carol Nichols. So it also has contributions from the Rust community. So basically a nice crab on the cover.
Excellent. Yeah, and I will post that in the comments as well. So you believe Rust programming should be what data professionals should be paying attention to and studying in the coming years, few years, let's say.
Coming few years, yes. So it's mostly aimed for the data engineers, right? Because data engineers are responsible for quick extraction and output of the data somewhere, right? If we look on the data analysts, right, most likely you're going to be good with Python because they will create abstractions, on those languages, just because there are a lot of people who are using that, right? And the Polars, there's a nice library which actually is written in Rust, and it has abstractions in Python, right? So it's blazingly fast, pandas replacement. So that should be a big thing as well.
Okay, super. There's quite a few insights for us to go with there. Okay, we are hitting the end of our time today, Thomas. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I think we covered a lot of things, and actually, was quite interesting, to talk about these things. So let's see if the listeners actually, feel me, and see similar things. So it's going to be interesting to see, the comments, on what they talk.
Yeah, totally. I think we've also flown through the topics there. We could well have spent 30 minutes talking about just the processes, just the tooling, just the framework. So hopefully this bite size look into the evolution of the value of data will be useful, and people can ask questions and comment. So with that, Thomas, thanks very much, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the podcast or in business very soon.
Yeah, thank you.